Good morning. It's Thursday, February 13th, 9 a.m. in New York. I don't know, 8 a.m. in Chicago, whatever. Thank you for
Happy
joining. It's time.
Valentine's Day, Mark.
Is today Valentine's Day? I thought it was
No,
tomorrow.
it's Galentine's Day.
Oh, Galentine's Day. Yeah. All right. Happy, whatever that is. Grateful to you for being here. Grateful to Sean and Dan for being part of the morning meeting. I see Leo. I see John. I see another John. I see Ken. This is like Romper Room Redux, and also known as the morning meeting. We run through what's going on today. We kick it around a bit. We take your questions. Please, if you're here on the two-way platform, as always, raise your hand to be part of the conversation. Say you're on X or YouTube. You've got another option. Just watch. Sign up at two-way.tv. You can become part of the YouTube of the two-way platform. So sign up for our newsletter to get the secret magic link to join us here. But if you're on YouTube or X, you can write stuff in the chat. I don't recommend it, really, because no one reads it but you. But if you do, just for the sanctity of our ethos, please don't write junk in there. Peace, love, and understanding, the presumption of grace to all. If somebody says something on the program today that you don't agree with, use it as a learning opportunity rather than to send me a text saying, Mark, I will never watch Two Way again because you have a bunch of crazy MAGA people or you have a bunch of extreme liberals. Steve Elmendorf was on the program last night, veteran Democratic strategist, eminently reasonable. Every time he's on, I learn a ton of stuff. I almost never remember anything anybody says in the show. It's part of my defect. I remember everything Steve says because he's a genius. And then I get emails from people saying, don't have this left-wing nut on your show. He's not a left-wing nut, but even if he were, you should welcome his participation to learn. Thank you very much. Sean and Dan, welcome in. Sean, what's on your mind? Just give us like one little thing that's on your mind. Doesn't have to have anything to do with what we talk about today. Did you eat a particularly good croissant? Just anything. Share.
I think croissants and espressos are more Dan's lane. I'm a egg and sausage kind of guy.
Yeah.
Iced coffee. So I'm just trying to keep up, Mark, in a
Okay.
Trump
Yeah.
world.
Yes. We're playing at Trump speed and Musk speed. Dan,
It's
what's on
hard when
your
you're
mind?
53 to keep up with a 78-year-old man.
Yeah.
Yes. Dan,
Just
what's
that
on
I
your mind?
that I make my flight today. That's what's on my
Yeah.
mind.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Dan is flying somewhere secret. I'll tell you this again. Steve Elmendorf last night said, "Stop talking about Joe Biden. He wants it on the rearview mirror." But I will say, the Biden people used to lie. Let's not sugarcoat it and say, "Oh, we have so much trouble keeping up with Joe Biden. He's so active. He's so incredible." It's actually true about the Trump people. They are having trouble keeping up with
Can
them.
you imagine though, under that God, if you worked for Biden, you would literally be having a coronary right now if that were true.
Yes. Good call. I like the double or triple entendre of that. Here's the daybook, folks. The
Great
President of the
tweet.
United States, his fourth head of state visit, head of government visit. Incredible. And this is another of the incredible pacing of, I mean, again, it's possible a previous president said four in less than a month, but I don't think so. And today's includes not just the welcoming ceremony at 4 o'clock, after, by the way, the president signs more executive orders at 1, including maybe on tariffs. 4 o'clock, he greets him. And then at 4:05, they have a bilat with a photo op where he will answer more questions in that photo op than most presidents, the previous president, would answer in a press conference. Then they have a press conference scheduled for 5:10. I doubt it will start on time, which means there's extreme peril for those who meticulously program two-way tonight, because this thing could be going on during our show, in which case we'll probably take it live. And then at 5:40, so the press conference is scheduled for 30 minutes, which would mean maybe more than 2 and 2. We don't know how many questions they'll take. And then at 5:40, they're having dinner in the state dining room. Unfortunately, that's closed press because I'd be super curious to be able to watch that. That's the President's Day, so he'll make a ton of news.
By the way, you know,
Yeah.
talk about a Valentine's Day gift. What Modi is going to bring the president in terms of tariff reductions should
Yes.
warm his heart.
Yes, it's going to be another template for a leader who comes in, building on the Japanese example. Come on bended knee, say, "Here, Mr. President, is this enough, or do I need to do more for you to keep from destroying my nation?"
Oh,
So
I think
he'll
this is
make
like 2017 with the Saudis. You have a nice shiny sword. You flatter them. You throw.
No, he's going to give him more than that.
No,
He's
no,
going to
no,
give
no,
him
no.
No, no,
they're
no.
Republicans
major
are
deliverables.
notorious for their tariffs. So
Major
the
deliverables.
president knows that.
Yeah.
But just
The
wait
president,
and see 2 years from now if it's real.
every time the president goes into a meeting with the head of state, head of government, he has a sheet of paper that shows the trade deficit and the trade deficit on autos. And that frames his whole sensibility. So again, Donald Trump regardless of what Musk or anyone else does today, he's going to make a ton of news. Signing executive orders, Mr. Scharf, who's now America's rat Robin or Friar Tuck, whatever he is. Ton of news with executive order signing, ton of news with the press conference and the photo op. So stay tuned for that. The vice president just landed in Munich, also known as Munchen. He's going to that Munich Security Conference, a big continuation of his tour, meeting world leaders on the national stage. He was earlier today in Poland at Dachau, commemorating the concentration camps. And in Munich, he's expected to meet, amongst other things, with Vladimir Zelensky, along with Secretary of State Rubio. So you have Rubio, the vice president, and the Secretary of Defense all in Europe, moving big chess pieces around in a very coordinated way. On Capitol Hill, the House at 10 o'clock marks up the budget resolution. We'll see where that goes. We'll talk about that in a moment. Hakeem Jeffries' press conference at 11. Senate side, lots going on with confirmation. The Trump cabinet is about to be fully stocked or close to it. Not quite full, but close to it. Judiciary votes on Kash Patel at 9. He will not get any Democratic votes. I predict that because I'm going out on a limb. 10 o'clock, Linda McMahon.
Hey, Mark, real quick, can I just,
Yeah.
Before we gloss over it, I will just say,
Yeah.
flashback a month ago, once Kash is done, outside of potentially the labor secretary, which has more Republican issues, Trump's going to have gotten everything you want, every one of these people through.
And as Tom Cotton predicted.
But the RFK one, you've gotten potentially McConnell as a problem, but both McCursky and Collins are on board with this. This is a huge coup for Trump.
It is a huge deal, and is because of the technical proficiency of the Sherpas, because of Donald Trump's control of the party and the performance of the nominees.
Well,
Help
but
committee.
Don't forget, Matt Gaetz went down, and that I think was the one sacrifice. Well, it was the one sacrifice to the gods. And I think then everyone else had to get through, because if he didn't and he had two go down, it would have been a real sign of weakness.
Well, if that's true, it might have been a huge decoy. Pretend to want Matt Gaetz, withdraw him, and then demand everybody else. Could be. Linda McMahon, Secretary of Education nominee, her first hearing before Help at 10. 12:30, Chris Murphy and Arnie Duncan hold a press conference bracketing on Linda McMahon. That press conference will strike fear in the hearts of the White House. Floor votes today. RFK will be confirmed, whether he gets 53 votes, 52, 51. We'll see, maybe more. Some Democrats still might vote for him. Brooke Rollins then will be her floor action on her nomination, and then they're going to start moving on Lutnick and Loeffler. According to Politico Pro, and just to be clear, when I'm citing them, I didn't pay a dime for it. They put some of their content online for free. I don't know why, maybe to entice me to give them 10 grand. Politico Pro says that Jamie Dimon and Brian Moynihan, two of America's leading bank CEOs, are on Capitol Hill today at a roundtable hosted by Tim Scott on debanking, a topic we have discussed here. All right, guys, here we go. Let's try to do this rapid, because I want to get a lot of questions in today, because I already see a lot of hands up. Please raise your hand if you want to be part of the conversation. Sean, where are we now in the Senate versus House Republican-only action on reconciliation? Will the House Budget Committee, for instance, pass the blueprint? And is either side going to blink, or are we just going to proceed on parallel tracks where the Senate pretends it's two bills and the House pretends it's one?
So there's an interesting dynamic. I had Ben Klein on my show last night, Congressman from Virginia. He's a Freedom Caucus member, a budget committee member, and an appropriator, which is sort of, you don't generally get those three at once. And he said, I'd be happy with two, but the real savings are on the one bill because of how, anyway, I don't want to get into that, but the bottom line is it's a much more conservative approach. I just don't think these guys have been selling it well. And that's where Johnson and his team should be going out there and making a much more, they are getting much, if you are a conservative that wants to see government spending reduced, the one bill approach is much better at this. The key today is right now they've already probably lost 2 votes on the budget committee. They can't lose more than 3. Jody Arrington, the chair, knows you don't bring it up in committee you don't have your business meeting if you don't know that. They're going ahead with the meeting today. If it's delayed, that's a problem. If they go forward with it, because the number gets out there right away. So once it happens and you start the train going down the track, it's a little hard to push it back into the station. If they start that means they have the votes. They'll get it to the floor. And then, right now you lose 2 on the budget committee. You're not picking them back up on the floor. You got 1 more to give. I think it's tough, but
Well, so who has the upper hand? Are we headed towards one bill or two? I mean, is the Senate going to back
think,
down?
Look, and here's why this is a bit of a ridiculous. So if the House passes it, and even if Lindsey Graham passes his, it goes to conference. So you have
There's no such thing as a conference. There's no conferences anymore.
Yes, there will be.
You think there'll be like an old-fashioned conference?
Yeah, they have to. You can't have
one side could back down and they could go past the other side's bill.
No, or you could, I mean, in theory, not to get wonky, you can deem it on the floor, deem your 302A number, and then just work off of that for the appropriators. But they're never going to do that. So they will go to conference, and then the question is, where does it go from there? But I think that's where this thing heads. Is the reason I say that, Mark, is the argument that Johnson's going to make to his members is procedural. Guys, just get it out, and then we'll fight it with the Senate. But if we don't get to the Senate, they'll roll us. So I mean, that's the play right now internally. Get it, pass it. We'll fight with Lindsey Graham. We'll get the president on our side. But if we don't have a bill that we've passed, we have no negotiating power. So he's got to make a procedural argument to his members. I get it. We'll fight this out with the Senate, but they'll roll us if we don't do this.
Dan, hold on 1 second. Dad, sorry to interrupt your breakfast, but my father used to be a lobbyist. He knows a ton about House and Senate procedure. What do you think of what Sean just said?
Well, I think it's right. There will be a conference and there won't be a conference. There's not going to be the old-fashioned conference where you sit out in public and actually negotiate. I've seen conferences.
Those don't exist. Those don't exist.
I don't think there's been one of those in 10 years. But they formally have to have something called a conference if they want to come back to the floor with a conference report, which has priority on the floor in both houses. So there's an advantage of doing a formal conference.
So what do you think will actually happen, Dan?
I don't have any idea.
All right, that's the right answer. Thank you for that clarification. I just wanted backup. There's no such thing as a real conference. They haven't had one in years. Thank you, Dad. Come back.
Can I phone a friend?
Sure. I got backup. Dan, what do you think is going to happen? Is the House going to cave? The Senate? Is it going to, I mean, are they headed? They're wasting time because now you've got one body doing one bill and one body doing two bills. At some point, somebody's going to have to fold. So where do you think this is headed?
House folds, Senate goes. They want points on the board. And there was freak out yesterday when the budget they put out called for $880 billion in healthcare cuts. And you had a lot of Republicans in not just swing states, but states that receive a lot of federal money say WTF.
Correct. But I actually give them credit for coming up with something that has a chance to pass. I didn't think they could get to this point. It may not, but it actually has a chance. I think they squared a lot of the circles pretty well. All right.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's a statement, not a bill, but yes. Okay.
No, I understand. But they had to move to the next phase with something that could get enough votes. So there's still this question of how involved the White House is. As we all know, the president has been, agnostic and saying one bill, two bills, I don't care. But he's leaned into one beautiful bill. Politico, in a story yesterday, please put up 101, reported this: Vance, Stephen Miller, and Russ Vought are among those in the administration pushing for two bills. Scott Bessent wants one. Now, I don't know if this reporting is true, but let's say it is. Sean, it seems to me this is a kind of quote unquote leak you don't normally see in this administration. We know very little about divisions or about who's for what. So is that kind of an aberration or maybe not accurate? Or do you think there's something to that if it's true? Not about the position on the bill, but I mean, of the first term, but this is the first thing I've seen like this.
Yeah, but I mean, if you watch season 1, it happened in every episode.
Right, but do you think this is a sign of like I'm sure there are divisions on Ukraine. I'm sure there are divisions on some aspects of DOGE. So is this the sign that people are now going to go to the media, including dreaded Politico, when they disagree?
Yeah, I think it's a great question you're asking. I just don't know. I mean, this is the first sign, as you've noted, that we're seeing. So is this going to become a recurrence where we play this out in the media, or is this just good reporting? I mean, look, the one of the things about Trump is that he actually encourages this. He wants to hear both sides and kind of. So this is healthy and good. The question is it being weaponized? So are some of the internal saying, hey, are we doing this because we're trying to win him over? Honestly, though, he's not like a big consumer of Politico. So I don't think that this might just be, frankly, the views of some of these folks. And I also, based on some of the other leaks that I've seen in the last 3 days, don't necessarily agree entirely that it has to be accurate.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I agree, but it's something to watch. Dan, what are your thoughts on if this is something that the White House comms operation is going to be like, everybody go back to your lanes and stop leaking, or an aberration, or what?
I'd like to hear that
conversation. It's also not the first time, because when the spending freeze happened, there was somebody leaked that a bunch of people were caught off guard. That
But the difference with that one was it was all anonymous. It just said some aides didn't like it. This is names, and again, I hope I'm not under-explaining this, but this is that is much more significant to say the Treasury Secretary and the head of the OMB differ on a big issue. This is not a little issue. They differ on a big issue. So you're right. You're right. The thing you cited, which showed up in several news organizations reporting, that was significant because it showed, a little bit of dissent. But this to me is a horse of a different color.
Yeah, and I think it matches with the fact that Stephen Miller's biggest focus has always been immigration. JD Vance is very sensitive to the base. He is very attuned to what they want. Immigration, and then I think energy, they want energy because they want to be able to point to something to say, we're doing something to try to bring prices down and juice the economy. Because everything else right now is not really focused on the economy. Scott Bessent is concerned about the tax bill. That is in his lane. And that is going to be very hard, as Congressman, what's his name, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee from Missouri, Jason Smith, has said. That bill as a standalone is very, very hard to get through the Republican House. So I think everyone is pushing for their equities, and it doesn't surprise me.
Great point. Great point. For lobbyists watching this program, many do. Tell your clients it's going to be 2 bills.
And I think, look, I go back to Trump. Trump is the chairman, not the CEO. He does not want to get involved in the day-to-day management.
Yeah. All right. In the news today, there's tons.
Dan, if you put your lobbyist hat back on, to Mark's point, would you rather want 2 bills to be able to? I mean, to me, if I were a lobbyist, I'd want to be able to tell clients we got 2 shots. You can keep moving them.
Correct.
Well, it 100%. Just depends. It depends what I'm lobbying for. But if my company has as the tax bill, I'd start to. I mean, I think a tax bill will go through because they can't let this all expire. So know that there'll be something. The question is how much can get shoved into it, and the offsets. I have a hard time seeing them not do anything. So
I want a client. I want a billionaire owner of a sports team as a client, because I want to be on the clock all year warding off Trump's threatened bill to.
Or how about being a private equity person who owns the sports team?
That would be the best.
Really?
That is Hunter Biden Burisma level retainer if you had that kind of client.
Your college kid, your kids are going to college this year for that.
All right. Lots of international stuff in the news today. Let me tick off some of it. There's the meeting with Modi. There's the aftermath of Trump's conversation with Putin. There's the Vice President, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State in Europe, and Europe's freak out over everything related to Trump. There's talk that I've heard and I've talked about on Two Way before that Taiwan is somehow in play. I still don't quite understand what that's about. There's reporting in the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal about Israel poised to go after Iran. There's Egypt now, just as Trump had hoped. There's Egypt now saying, hey, Trump's plan's horrible. Why don't we rebuild Gaza? So there's lots going on internationally. Dan, what international player or players are obstacles for Trump now? Who is not bending to Trump's will that the administration has to worry about?
I think in the Middle East, the question is, are they trying to delay and kind of run this out a little bit versus really confronting and trying to solve the problem immediately? I think it's a dance in the Middle East. They're smart. They understand how to flatter Trump. They understand kind of how to play the game a little bit. And I think there is a question of, would Trump really send U.S. troops into Gaza and, rebuild this? Or is he just pushing us and we'll wait him out? To me, that is really the big question. And the second would be just Europe coming to grips or terms with they need to own their own future versus rely on us. And I, both administrations have been telegraphing that a little bit now for the last 10 years.
Son, who's in Trump's way?
Who's in his way?
What world leaders are currently a problem? Like Putin, he seems to have Putin and Xi kind of not neutralized, Netanyahu too. Those are the big 3 typically, right? American leaders don't have leverage over Netanyahu, Putin, and Xi. Trump seems to be doing okay with all three of them right now. So who's
Although
in
I think
the
part
way?
of this, but I would actually say that Xi is not making it an issue. So I actually think that's the wild card. She has sort of said, you go play with those guys, and then we got to have our own little dance here.
Yeah, but that's different. Like right now, Trump doesn't need to spend bandwidth on what are we going to do about Xi. It's like in a nice holding pattern for him. He doesn't have him wrestle to the ground, but he's not a problem.
I don't think anybody's a problem. The only problems that are going to be self-imposed. You've got we're now on the 30-day deadline with Canada and Mexico. So at some point he's got to get something to, like, once you start.
I'm not saying the problem to solve. The secret premise of my question is Trump has flipped the board over, put it back up, and put the pieces where he wants. There's currently nobody who's a problem for him.
Right.
There's challenges and there's challenges. Not a threat. They're problems. There's no threats. Zelensky's not a threat right now. Putin's not a threat right now. The way they were for Biden, like Sullivan and Blinken had to be worried. Like, what's Putin doing today? What's he up to? How are we going to deal with that? Same with Xi. I just don't. And same with Netanyahu. I don't see anybody right now who Trump's like, this is a crisis. How are we going to neutralize this person?
Mark,
it's not forever.
I don't know about
but
that.
right now, name the person. Who's the person who's
Netanyahu? Because if he goes into Iran and that goes side, but right now it's all talk. It's very easy to say, tough guy, you don't do this by Saturday. Like we have Israel's back. It's another thing if they go into Iran and stuff is shot.
It could all go south tomorrow, but right now, jaw is beating war.
But hold on a second. Mark, do you think, because Netanyahu has flipped off every U.S. president for the last 40 years, he doesn't have Netanyahu by the balls. They just happen to respond right now.
He doesn't have him by the balls, but Netanyahu doesn't have him by the balls today. That's my point. Today. He doesn't today.
I think he does.
He doesn't. Not compared to Biden.
Look, Bibi. By the way, we got 48 hours till 12 o'clock on Saturday when he gave that deadline to Hamas. So, but I don't think that Bibi's going to go out there and go nuts without checking it with him first.
Correct.
Wait. Check with them.
But Sean, Hamas said they're going to release everybody. They backed down. So the deadline's off. And that's another example. Again, I don't want to overstate it. It could all go south tomorrow. Putin could take more land. Xi could, try to take Taiwan. Stuff could happen. I'm just saying today, Thursday, February 13th, I don't see a single world leader who Trump has to currently worry about. How do we check what they're doing? Even Iran.
Okay, right. Agree.
Yeah. Okay. Dan, I'm forcing you to agree.
I think he worries about.
No.
Say yes.
All right. We talked about Taiwan, so we can skip that. All right. Last topic, and then we're going to take your questions again. If you want to be in on the conversation on these topics or get a clarification of the color of Dan's blazer, anything you want, please raise your hand. So I tend to overreact sometimes to trends in politics. And I thought after the election, and frankly, even during the election, that the Democratic Party was in a world of hurt. And then after the election, people calmed me down, said it's not so bad. Remember what happened to the Democrats after Trump won in 2016. Remember what happened to Republicans after Obama won, and then the rise of the Tea Party. These things are cyclical. I now am of the belief that things are actually really dire for the Democrats. And I see that in just a lot of ways, but let me tell you one way it's manifesting that's making me really rethink the prospect of a legitimate comeback, which is they've lost access to so many things that prop them up as asymmetrical, massive advantages for years. Not lost them completely, but entertainment, news, the academy, social media, like all these things, Silicon Valley fundraising, all these things that were either massive or mega massive advantages are now not, and they're trending the wrong way. And Republicans are on the offense to neutralize those even more. So, Dan, am I right that it's more dire than the conventional wisdom? And there's a bunch of polling that shows the party's their image is completely messed up. Am I right that it's more dire than the conventional wisdom, or am I back to overreacting?
I'm going to do a John McLaughlin. Wrong. I think you're overreacting, and I think there's two things. One, I don't know of a party in the minority where the other party has the trifecta that has been on offense or even competitive in the conversation for the first 3 to 6 months of a new administration, let alone the first 3 to 6 weeks. It just does not happen. You don't have the tools. You don't, the electorate just voted for the other side's agenda. They have a honeymoon. Like, I think the earliest a honeymoon is really blown up was probably Obama in April when cap and trade started going down. And it was the first sign of like the party was splintering a little bit. But I think everything you mentioned, Mark, some of those groups are members of the incumbent party. So if the Democrats start looking like they're making movement, they will start to hedge again. Silicon Valley, Wall Street, entertainment. The other part of it is we have not relied on those people per se. If you look at the $2 billion that Kamala raised, about 70% of it, 65 or so, was low dollar money. It's the base. That is the secret sauce to the party. It is where Republicans have tried to catch up with us. Trump has been very frustrated that the grassroots on their side have not matched it as much. The base is frustrated, but I don't think money would be a problem for us in the future. I think we have to get messengers and a message, but that is always the case when you lose everything.
I don't agree with that. I think you guys have been defanged. I've never in my lifetime seen an instance. Now, do I think that these tech guys, I think they're completely full of crap, and that the second that the power shifts back, they're going to apologize to your side and say, we only hung out with Trump because we had to. They're full of it. They are transactional. Fine. We'll take them while we can. We can, they can, but I've never seen an instance. I mean, think about this. It was noted last night. Think about on college campuses right now. Throughout Joe Biden's 4 years, people are going nuts on college campuses, and we don't have any of that. There's no passion. Your side doesn't have any sort of sense of fight in it right now, and that's the difference. Is that normally the party loses, and then there's this, either on our side it was Tea Party patriots, on your side Occupy Wall Street, that comes out and says we got to go out there and make the case. We got to fight. It's like everyone's walking around as Democrats. And as a Republican and a Trump supporter, people walk up to me and was like, hey, man, you guys won. We're just going to sit. I mean, like, there's no sense of like, we're going to fight.
I agree.
Back.
Totally
but
agree.
There
totally
never
agree.
is 3 weeks into, one. The second thing is, look.
Dude, it was
there was 8 years ago.
Oh my God. The Washington Post talked about impeaching the guy. There were rallies in the street.
But if I look, though, at 17, and I look at the last 50 years, that was a one-off. Trump's win was so shocking. And, you had the Russia allegations. He lost the popular vote. Like, it was another loss of the popular vote after Al Gore. So I agree. It's not 17. But here's the other thing. Trump, and Steve said this last night, and I've said it as well, the rubber is going to meet the road on a whole bunch of this stuff. Right now,
100%.
He is the greatest TV producer, political TV producer ever. He is, action and attention and all of this. Prices are either going to start to come down or they're not. The economy is either going to start to get better or it's not. Immigration is either going to, meaning cleaning it up, so to speak, is either going to start to get better or it's not. And by the way, I go back to this, Sean, the White House has stopped putting numbers out. The White House has stopped on immigration. They have stopped putting the images out. Why? Because the amount of people they're getting in totality to the problem is a joke. It is. It's 0.001%. It's better than zero. But my point is, when you have a new administration, it is either just like Trump benefited. Either Biden was going to bring prices down, have a better economy, or people are going to want to change. If this stuff doesn't start to improve, we will have an opportunity. I mean, that's just and
that may be true.
Everything. Right.
Yeah, and you're right. If key things don't keep improving. But I was at a Maha event last night in Washington, D.C. to celebrate what we thought was going to be Bobby's confirmation. Most people in that room, and this was an event that people were paying to come to, were your people. They were donors that you probably hit up, and every one of them. And one guy I talked to had previously worked at the DNC. And I said to him, just out of curiosity, why are you here today? Is it just Bobby? And he said, no, I have 3 daughters. And he goes, and I sat there at one point and watched guys on the field, and someone pushed a young girl down on my daughter. And he goes, and I had enough. Your party has gone too far in a lot of issues.
Correct. So let me say four things that I think, Dan, run counter to your assumption that it will be not like 17, but be like the other times when a party's lost. First, I'll say I'd be super curious to know how Kamala Harris's fundraising appeals for the DNC are going. I'd like to know how much those are raising. Here are four differences. One is we've never had a president as aggressive as Trump. We never have. We've never seen the Democratic Party, at least, be this far to the left. So if you assume, as most people we know do, that there has to be some moderation to get more of the center back, they got a long way to go. Three is the thing I said before, which is they've lost some fundamental strengths and asymmetrical advantages that they have had for years and years. And four is, again, you can tell me about Governor Bashir or Governor Moore, but in every previous cycle, I could tell you the names of people from the losing party who could run for president and would strike some fear in the hearts of the majority party. I cannot name a person like that today. Are they afraid of the governor of Illinois, or of Amy Klobuchar, or of Gavin Newsom, or of Wes Moore, or Governor Bashir? They are not. Maybe they should be, but they're not afraid of any Democrat right now. Not one. To the contrary, they're like, bring them on. We'll run against any of those people, regardless. So again, I don't want to overreact. I don't want to say the Democratic Party's dead. I'm just saying, as I survey the polling data, the fundraising data, and the daily news flow, and I look at the decline. I mean, they had all these corporations so woke that they were adjuncts of the Democratic Party. It's all flipped. It's all flipped.
But
Not
hold on a second.
100%,
That is
but that's a loss of
because-
a big advantage.
Well, but hold on. Those companies, having been a lobbyist for years, those companies are members of the incumbent party. It was cool in 2021 to be doing all of this stuff coming off of George Floyd. It's not cool now. And to Sean's point, if the tides turn, they will all come skirt. Mark Zuckerberg will cut his hair, take off the chain and the t-shirt, and put on whatever Democrats are wearing. Maybe it'll be a blue blazer. But I would also just say, Mark, that one thing that, and I agree with you, but I would just put a note of caution. If the playing field is in 4 years what it is today, you're totally right. But historically, after 12 years of a singular person or party dominating, which is essentially, Trump essentially dominated the last 4 years, the national conversation, it is often the case the country begins to want a change in tone, in style, and I mean, the only one who really extended it was FDR in the last 100 years. So if you assume that things will evolve in the next 3 years, who the right candidate is for that moment may be amongst the seven dwarfs, you know, to do the old Lee Atwater. I think it was Lee Atwater in '88 called them the seven dwarfs. But, you know, it's dark right now, but I don't think, like, I think it will get lighter.
Andrew, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks who don't know where you are, who you're wearing, and what's on your mind.
I have no idea who I'm wearing. I'm from Ohio. I actually had a follow-up on what you guys are kind of talking about here in terms of structural problems for the Democrats, we'll call it. You know, obviously there's a lot of USAID conversations going around with DOGE, and there's a lot of pieces to what that kind of means downstream. I haven't read everything that's been cut. But it definitely seems to align with kind of the left side of the political aisle. And I'm curious if that has any kind of downstream effect on what kind of dollars, fundraising, et cetera, looks like for Democrats as some of the dollars from the federal government and the taxpayer stop running to causes that are related or pet causes toward them. At least that seems to be the overwhelming majority of what is getting cut right now at DOGE.
Don. Or Dan, go ahead. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, this is where the misinformation is just overwhelming the system. It is not money that is funneling to kind of backdoor Democratic political machines. Democrats will not. It's just
oh,
not.
no. I can appreciate that.
I'm sorry. And I don't know if you can see, one of my colleagues is laughing, shaking his head at me. Look, Democrats, I do not think will lack for money to be competitive. What we lack, to Mark's point and Sean's, is messengers, people, and a message that connects with the electorate and the problems that are existing today. We lack those things. I do think that candidates will emerge knowing their communities and what is most important on the Upper West Side of Manhattan and meet that moment. You got to get in front of the majority on issues. The challenge is going to be Trump is so attuned to what is happening in the country. He is so culturally sensitive that it's going to be hard to get around him to own an issue where he wasn't paying attention. And that's often how you do it, right? Immigration would be a great example.
Yeah.
He seized it and everyone belittled it.
Hold on, just real quick news update. The House leadership says, Republican leadership says that a markup vote will be unanimous on the Republican side, and it will be brought to the floor the last week of February.
Okay.
If true, that's kind of a big deal, of course. Sean.
Yeah, I will say that there's a big difference between political fundraising and what we're talking about. I think candidates drive that, message drives that, apparatus drives that, infrastructure drives that. So like Act Blue and a lot of the stuff that the Dems have, you know, as long as you keep that low dollar base jazzed, you know, you're good. I will say this on the spending front, what the Trump administration has done brilliantly, I think, is throw out enough examples of waste and left-wing waste, to be honest with you. I mean, it's not just like, hey, there's a program that doesn't, you know, that turns lights on that is automated now, and this is outdated and ridiculous. It's like saying $70,000 for a trans comic book in Ireland doesn't exactly bode well with anybody. So it may not be the most consequential dollar figure, but I think it reminds people of how far detached some of these elites have gotten from the average taxpayer that's working hard, sending money to the government and saying, why am I working hard and no one actually respects what I do or how hard I work or the struggles that I'm facing? And that keeps this issue. And when you're going out and standing in front of a building, which is where I think the Democrats are missing this. If they stand outside of a building and say, we're going to protect you, for a lot of people, that comes across as defending the status quo. And you're saying to yourself, really, like, you guys are saying that this is okay and we're going to protect you. This is why, like, I can't honestly believe that, like, at some point soon, somebody's going to have to step up on their side and say, we look ridiculous. We got to do better. But defending this is not smart politically. And then, I mean, tangentially, I think that has a hard time getting people's sympathies, except for maybe the far, far left when it comes to fundraising.
Well, and
Andrew, thank you.
I want to just add this. If you think the federal government, this wasteful spending is simply on what I'll call Democratic priorities, I'll sell you the Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah. I don't know why our party has not shoved the Republican priorities to the front and center to humiliate them. There are so many programs. By the way, the entire first term of Donald Trump, none of this was cut. All of this stuff this stuff was not just popped on the taxpayer. Some of it was under Biden, but a lot of this stuff, I cannot.
Well, to be fair, Dan, hundreds of billions under Biden. Not excusing Trump's profligate spending. He's the big. He's as big a fraud as any president on deficit. But Biden, there was a lot of it.
Absolutely. But tax breaks that are very unique and one-off for businesses that the average person, if they heard, would be horrified. I don't know why we don't play this game. Well, I do, but
as a Republican, I would be more than happy to ruin and work on primaries against Republicans who are taking that same stuff. I guess part of the DOGE question is, are they specifically seeking some of that out? I mean, they say they're not.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. Andrew, thank you. Chuck, welcome in. Tell us about the dog. Tell us where you are. Tell us what's on your mind.
Hadn't been feeling good lately.
I'm
I
sorry.
gotta put him down. He weighs a ton.
I was going to say it looks like a fake dog.
I've got to back up. Big picture question. If a quarter of what we've heard so far about DOGE is true, do political consultants bear any responsibility for leaving us in the dark?
You mean about the spending that's gone on for years?
About all this stuff. I mean, it's as if we've been sitting around watching a puppet show.
Yeah. I
And
blame the
all
political consultants a little bit, but I blame the press more. I blame the public most because this information is all available and the public hasn't been adults and said, yeah, we're going to give up some programs, including changes to Medicare and Social Security in order to save the programs and cut the debt and deficit for our
yeah,
kids and our
but you guys
grandkids.
get the subscriptions. You guys have the
The Politico Pro.
subscriptions to the
Well,
Yeah.
newsletters.
but
It's
the
all
thing
it's
is,
all available on the internet, Chuck. If the voters really were serious about this, the politicians would respond because most politicians would like to cut the deficit.
But that's what we turn to you guys for. That's what
well,
we turn to the media for. That's the
Well,
media
wait, you want to talk about
job.
you want to blame me or you want to blame the political consultants or
I want to
both?
blame everybody.
Yeah.
but-
Certainly
but I
it's
just-
Chuck,
certainly it's
Chuck,
my
as I
fault.
often say with people who come on the program, you speak for tens of millions.
Yeah,
You want to
right.
blame everybody, and I'll blame the media a ton, and I'll blame the political consultants a ton. But if the voters said en masse and joined grassroots movements and said, you know what, we're adults, we care about our kids' future. We've looked at the numbers, which have been available in public for decades, and said, you know what, I'm not going to let someone scare me into saying they want to destroy Social Security or they want to destroy Medicare. Because what they're actually thoughtfully proposing, the few brave enough to do it in both parties, is to save the programs by making actuarially sound decisions. So if you, the voters, demanded it, they'd be delighted to do it. But
But I don't
instead,
know
you
about
allow
I don't
yourself to be manipulated by advertising that says they want to kill my Social Security.
they don't how are we supposed to know that the Treasury isn't asking the right questions when they're
No. But I think
happens?
to Mark's point, Chuck, here's the bottom line. Social Security and Medicare are both going insolvent. And when politicians of both parties, just to be clear, to take some hits on my end, get up and say, I'm going to protect it and I won't touch it. When you won't touch it, you support bankruptcy and insolvency.
Correct.
Don't deal with these problems. If we don't deal with the mandatory problems, we are spending more on interest on the debt than our national defense, and China is an existential threat to us. We refuse to have tough discussions, and that's on everybody.
Yeah, and Chuck, long before Politico Pro was invented, back when if you wanted to read the Washington Post, you had to go to your local library and get some microfiche out.
Yep.
This has been known. This is not new. Now, the DOGE cuts for domestic programs, yes, those are symbolically significant, and every dollar counts. But if you're saying how are we going to bring back fiscal sanity, it's simple. It's more economic growth and dealing with the two big entitlement programs by saving them, as Sean said, not destroying them. It's ironic and paradoxical and insane. The few people brave enough to want to save them get accused of trying to destroy them, and then they stop trying to save them. Dan.
I'm with you 100%.
I would not blame the consultants. I would blame members of Congress.
Yes.
All of this is appropriated. And the reason this isn't talked about as much is if you took all the appropriations bills and put them together, it's thousands of pages. And it doesn't say Dan Turrentine, $50 million for condoms to whatever it was, like
Mozambique.
Mozambique. The language is incredibly dry and germane. 50 million to subsection A/B1D. So one, you have to know how to connect all the dots. And Congress keeps it opaque. They don't want people going through all of this. Both parties, this is why I laugh. Democrats definitely spend. Democrats are definitely guilty for half of this. The other half of this is Republicans. Politico had a story yesterday. All the Republican governors calling saying, don't cut this program. Don't cut this aid, right? The other thing is, you're saying that you're concerned about this, right? About debts and deficit and wasteful spending.
Absolutely, of course.
Okay.
Everybody is.
Okay. How do you feel about the fact that the Trump tax cut, this whole, if they had one beautiful bill, it would add about $4 trillion to the debt?
Well, the fact that we're voting on these gigantic packages is, absurd.
But time out, Chuck.
But that's part of it.
But
That's part of the overall problem. And I'm with you 100%. I'm writing to my my congressman who is a Republican, I'm a Republican, and I'm saying, what the hell have you guys been doing?
But what did, in Donald Trump's first term, he substantially added to the debt because he did not want to have to make tough decisions. I would be stunned if Donald Trump is willing to make tough decisions. So again, this is a public policy question, but it frustrates me as a Democrat that right now, DOGE, the bullseye is right at us. And the public believes this is purely Democratic, wasteful, woke spending. And it is embarrassing, some of this stuff. It's indefensible. Common sense says get rid of it. It is 0.00001% of federal spending. You want to get to the root of it, look at both parties and look at the current person in the White House as well. There's no leadership for any of this.
Thank you, Chuck. Grateful to you. Joshua, welcome in. Tell folks where you are, who you're wearing, and what's on your mind, please.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for taking my... this isn't a call. What do you call it in 2025?
Thanks for allowing me to be present with Dan and Sean.
Thanks for allowing me to be present with Mark. I don't know about Dan and Sean. I am proudly repping American Eagle, Old Navy, and Marine Corps swag from Norfolk, Virginia. Awesome. It dawned on me a couple, maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Sometimes I have these eureka moments about our, American system of government. Least eureka to me. It dawned on me when I was watching Question Time in the Canadian Parliament that although the United States doesn't have an opposition party or a shadow government like parliamentary systems do, don't we? Yes. We really sort of do.
Yeah, we sort of do.
Because there are some things on the big picture that everybody agrees with. And then everything else, all the big arguments seem to me to be overblown and hyperbolic in order to whip votes, right? In order to win, right? Voting, politics is about winning. Policy is about governance. Politics is about winning. So I want y'all to convince me that I'm wrong. That the parties, that the arguments that we have, and that some of the conversations, the arguments that we've had, that we've heard today, for example, with spending, and look at DOGE, right? Great. No more condoms to Mozambique. How much did that cost? Like $5, right? In the grand scheme of things. So explain to me.
59 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, 59 million, Sean.
Every dollar matters. Every dollar matters.
Yeah, I guess. Right. It sort of does. It sort of does, I guess. But somebody convince me why any of this actually matters in the long run.
The DOGE cuts or the political fights, kabuki fights. Like what? Rephrase your question.
Yeah,
please.
Little rivers make big oceans. I get it. I get it. But you don't. Nobody sees the ocean at the end of that river when they're paddling on it.
Well, I think I think you're right and you're wrong. I mean, I think to Mark's point, every dollar, every reform is, sometimes it can take a 1,000 little pieces to create something big. So, and that's why I think Democrats are wrong to belittle DOGE, just like they were wrong to belittle the 5% nick on the edge of NAFTA as like it's not a real change, but still 5% is better than nothing when they change NAFTA.
Sure.
I think that where there are shadow governments right now. All the Obama people, a lot of them are going, or the Biden people, to think tanks and law firms and lobby shops where they'll keep working on their craft, on their subject matter of expertise, in hopes that in 4, 8, or 12 years they'll be back in power and they can go and serve again, and they'll be better for it. Look, the fights are worth having because what might not be important to you or me might be important to Mark or Sean, and vice versa, and that's part of a democracy. And who am I to say, hey, that's small and shouldn't be significant, and you shouldn't care about it? So,
Sean.
To me, it's a mentality. Taxes are taxes and death are realities of life in a democracy. well, and the latter in life. I find it so disrespectful that I get it. This is an amazing country. We should feel privileged to live here, and we have a lot of luxuries that other places in the world don't have. We have some good roads. We have defense mechanisms that protect us, but I don't. To me, it's an arrogance and elitist mentality that says we don't. This isn't that much money. That doesn't matter. I'll pay my taxes. I'll pay my fair share. But I find it so disrespectful when a bunch of elitists in Washington arrogantly say, "Who cares about that million or that 5 million?" To me, that's insulting.
And that is how stuff gets in bills. Just to Sean's point,
Mhm.
if the bill is going to be X billions of dollars, they call it putting ornaments on the Christmas tree, right? How many can we get on? You
Right.
just go and you get somebody to put a sentence in a bill or a comma or a semicolon, and it's just 5 or 10 million. It's just 50 million. And in a multi-trillion-dollar budget, that is exactly how, and this is how over 20, 30 years it stacks up, because rarely do you cut the spending, you just add to.
Elon was making the point in the Oval the other day about these contracts. I've seen it. When I mentioned this on a previous thing, when I was on active duty, we had a task force that was set up for like a couple of years. And then we hired contractors to figure out how to make the task force permanent. The mentality was, oh, we shouldn't go away, even though the mission was gone. We'll have mission creep, and we'll figure out how to evolve our mission into something that was never supposed to happen because, well, it's government. Let's make it permanent. Let's codify all this. My view at the time, and Stan's like, no, we were given a short-term task. That task is completed. Everybody walks away. But in Washington and in government, it's no. We're all fat and happy. Let's figure out how to make sure that we all can just stay here. We'll figure out a different way of doing stuff. But that's to me, again, it gets back to a level of respect and inefficiencies. It's not how, this isn't about private sector coming in and it's just, that's common sense. And I think over and over again, right now, what Trump and DOGE is showing us rather, is that for the first time, pulling back the curtain in a very big way and exposing it to hopefully get us outraged at what's happening in our government.
For sure.
Joshua.
And when I say, I mentioned DOGE because that's in the news today. And look, I don't want my, I just finished my tax returns, right? So I'm not trying to send condoms to Mozambique or Gaza if we, send condoms to Gaza. It seems like this is a Congress problem then, because again, getting back to the politics is about winning. Winning requires money. That's pork, right? That's fat.
It's called appropriations. It's in the Constitution.
Sure, yeah.
That is what they do.
Yeah. All right, Joshua. Yeah. Joshua, thank you, man.
Hey,
Grateful
thanks,
to you for
guys.
coming
Appreciate
on.
it.
Thank you. All right, Leo, welcome in. Leo, are you still in Saudi Arabia?
Hi. No, I moved back to Florida, thank God, from Georgia. So I'm back in my home state.
Well,
I have an antique now officially. Bidding starts at $500.
Look at that.
So, yes.
What is that? Can you just, is that a pamphlet or?
No, it's from my undergrad year. They used to give these books out in the IR department.
What's in the pages?
A bunch of graphs, democracy indexes for Latin America, that current period.
All right. What do you want for that artifact? $100. Start the bidding at $100.
Starting.
500.
Wait,
All right, start the bid.
Leo,
500. Put your bids in the chat.
Leo, what year is that on there?
2016.
Okay, and 2017.
Yeah.
Did you work for USAID?
No. Just we used it for research and stuff.
Got it.
But yes, so I wanted to ask Dan in particular. Dan, I'm back in Florida, and I am 3 missteps away from stopping being a Democrat. And the reason is, Dan, I really am confused as to how the party is handling being out of power. I have a lot of the same concerns that people already mentioned. Look, Dan, I've worked on 2 campaigns. I worked on Gillum and I worked on Crist in Florida. And I've noticed that Democrats tend to have a very poor attitude with people that work with them, where they have a very, shut up and go knock on doors and they don't take feedback. And I can tell you, I have a buddy who was a college Republican, worked on Trump's campaign this last time, and he's begging me every day, look, I have access to the president. I got offered a job at DOGE. I got offered a job at the Department of Commerce. Come on over. Meanwhile, I can't get the head of the Hialeah Democrat Party on the phone to do anything. And I'm a Latino male, large population you guys lost last time. I wrote you guys a report. I have it there for free about why you lost. And I had it ready and I sent it to people before the convention because I knew this was going to happen. And what happened? This convention was a total disaster. I mean, Dan, I'm from Florida, so I know the effects of David Hogg. David Hogg, not a personal attack. What are the effects of March for Our Lives in the state where what happened, where he comes from, is that now we have permitless concealed carry in this state. So how is this person appointed to any position? He is completely ineffective. Oh, but I guess he went to Harvard. So that's why it matters. So anyone that didn't go to Harvard, like myself, who's actually did free work for you guys, can't get that seen by anyone because I didn't go to Harvard. And this party is just striking me now as a total grift that's just trying to fundraise and fundraise and fundraise. And meanwhile, no one cares. No, it seems like Democrats do not actually want to win. And this is incredibly frustrating for someone who was always a Democrat and is just trying to help. But who can I call? Who can I email that will actually look at the real concerns that they keep asking me? Oh, why did we lose the Latino male vote? Well, I have a whole report for you, but no one will take it because no one cares.
Dan,
Well,
thank you, Leah.
Yeah, I mean, first off, please don't leave the party. You're frustrated and understandably so, but hopefully you can be a part of rebuilding it. I know you're trying and the hand isn't being extended, but hopefully a hand or hands are extended. One, the Democratic Party of Florida for now 20 years has been a disaster. It has been bad. I know I spent a year down there 20 years ago or 22. I know a lot of the people down there. It's in shambles. It is. I wish I had better news. I don't know about the Hialeah County, in particular. Look, it's tough right now. When you win, the local people get access, they get perks, especially a state like Florida, which is huge to Trump. So I'm sure if you have friends that are active in Republican politics in Florida, it is as good. It's like being from the California in the Pelosi era, right? It was like as good as it got in terms of access. And I don't mean to kind of laugh about it, but we have problems. We need to get organized. We need to get, competitive again in Florida. We need to win back Latinos. Stick with us, right? I know you're frustrated. If you want, you and I can email offline. I can try to connect you with people in the national party. And I can even try to connect you with people down there. But stick with us. Don't go to the Trump side.
Yeah, I would love that, Dan, because you seem to be like the last Democrat that actually cares. And I'm telling you, it's not some stupid report. I wrote something very simple, around 5 pages, and no one will see it. And it's clear they're not seeing it because they're not acting in any way that's different than before. So yeah, I'd appreciate if there's someone I could help out, because even as someone who's not super partisan, we need 2 parties that actually work. And this is not going to happen.
But you know what?
John, you ready?
Whether your report is good or not, you took the time to write a report because you care. And we need passion from people like you who see problems, want to fix the problem, and want to be involved. We need a lot of Leos.
John, you ready to walk Leo into the Oval to meet Donald Trump?
Yeah, the water's warm, my friend. Come on in.
You can hitch a ride on Air Force One next time it heads north.
Sean, do you want to say anything to Leo or in response to?
No, I will say this. It's interesting that after the last election, these, I joked about this, half kidding, a couple shows ago. I used to have a pretty good spidey sense. I could walk into a room and go, Democrat, Democrat, Trump supporter. It's gone because the number of people, Latinos, Hispanics, young Black men, Black women, young people, women that I thought, that we see a lot of them on this platform that say, I never voted for Trump, I was voting for Hillary, have slowly started to come over. And we are building a coalition on our side that I only could have dreamed of. And I think, to your point, Leo, and God bless Dan for all the work that he puts in. But that's why I don't mean to be like, I'm not trying to be partisan when I say this, but it's like, it's kind of pathetic to watch some of these responses where it's a bunch of people singing. And as a guy with no artistic qualities whatsoever, I'm like, dude, this is when you don't talk. Like, they're out there yelling outside of a building, Chuck Schumer holding Coronas. It's like, is this the best you got? It's just sad.
Look,
Leo, do you know how to?
It was not good to be a part of the Trump movement at this time in 2021. So it happens. Never know where you'll be in 4 years.
Leo, do you know how to use the DM function in Zoom?
I just sent you my email, Leo.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So you should see Dan's email address in there.
Leo,
Leo,
DM me.
you.
Leo,
Yeah.
DM me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on, we should make.
Leo, thank you for joining me. Come back regularly. Enjoyed having
Thank
you on
you.
always. Thank you. All right. Tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern time, a little program we like to call Two-Way Tonight will be on. Our guests are TBD and TBA. So
I know them.
We'll have some guests.
That's a new, that's another one of those K-pop bands, right?
Exactly. We'll have some guests and I'll be there and we'll have full coverage of the president's day with executive orders and Modi and anything else that happens, including on Capitol Hill. And if we'll either have live coverage of the press conference if it doesn't start on time, or we'll have full comprehensive team coverage, whatever that means, of the president's press conference with Prime Minister Modi. And this program will be on tomorrow. Same
Casual
bad time,
Friday.
same bad channel, Casual Friday. And we'll have some more mini announcements to make. You won't want to miss it. So we'll see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Gentlemen, have a great day. Thank you for your service to America. And Sean, have you been reappointed to that board yet, or is that still pending?
Still pending.
By
the way, actually,
just say you have nothing for me at this time.
I will tell you, keep an eye on the Washington Post.
Okay, just constantly refresh WashingtonPost.com.
I'll give you a heads up. I'll tell you what, I'll DM you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, everybody. Have a great day. See you at 6 p.m. tonight.